A very warm welcome to everyone. Today is Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. Celebrating name days are Peter, Anthony, Benedict, Pompeius, Willibald, Kira, Sedzislaw, and once again, Cyril and Methodius this year. The price of BTC is $63,320 and the price of KNG is $1.03. My name is Simon Herstowski and joining me today is
Łukasz Zeligowski. Hi, Szymon.
Hi, Łukasz.
A week ago, we were much lower. The clear winner here is Ethereum with nearly 12% growth over 7 days, and Solana is also doing quite well. Bitcoin is up 6.5%, so you could say that's a good result. And the channels on X, YouTube, or wherever we look on social media are starting to heat up again. It turns out that some people are saying it's exactly as it was always meant to be. We're right on track. Others say, yes, this is it. This time we're truly in a bull market. The bottom has finally been hit. And suddenly there are quite a lot of these so-called fortune tellers and self-proclaimed experts all sharing their predictions. Because the gains are looking optimistic, very optimistic. The level we have of $63,270 on Bitcoin can indeed fill us with optimism here. However, many analysts are pointing to those critical levels of $65,000, $66,000. Breaking through them could actually symbolize in some way that the bottom has already been reached. Of course, breaking through and holding it, not just a temporary move above that state. And they're also saying that $61,000 is that resistance point below which we shouldn't drop anymore if we're to have a confirmed bull market or a confirmed bottom. Here, I'll return to the idea of cycles again. Those who believe in the 4-year cycle, or roughly every 4 years, often say, well, this is a bull trap. It's a trap for the bulls, for those people who think it's only going up from here. But in reality, it's just a temporary, short-lived bounce, and we could still see further drops. And that's a topic we'll definitely come back to, whether this is actually the bottom or not, whether to buy now or wait, because those who predict drops say that 45,000 should be reached in this cycle. And of course, they point out that these deeper drops will happen in the beginning, at the start of the fourth quarter of this year, while those who say it's over predict it'll be 180,000 by the end of this year. Again, wherever you listen, that's what you'll hear. The fact is that the price is wildly volatile and the market is reacting quite nervously.
Mm-hmm. And what's your personal gut feeling about the price?
I'm an incurable optimist, and here we can, for a moment, maybe before we move on to the news and everything that's been happening in the market over the last few days, and quite a lot has been happening. I did some simple calculations, and it was for the purpose of some conversation. I thought, man, I really need to calculate this, right? And now I'm checking my notes so I don't get anything wrong here. Listen, so it's like this, all the buying and all the earning on this crypto comes down to estimating the probability, some say, others say risk, right? We call the same thing by different names here, but generally it's about, well, how much we can earn or how much we might not earn if we don't make some move, right? And now I've adopted a simple assumption for my calculations. The fact is that most analysts are betting on the amount of 180,000 as the lower growth target in the next cycle. That will be the amount. There are few who say less. There are far more who say much more. So now let's take a moment to consider how exactly that would be. Let's just assume a scenario like this, right? Suppose that the price actually reaches $180,000. And what if that really happens? And so I've laid out three scenarios in my head. I say, okay, I don't know how, I'm no expert, I don't know, I'm buying now at 60,000. I know it's already over 63, but let's assume 60,000. I buy today and I'll sell with that profit at 180,000 when Bitcoin hits that, right? I have peace of mind. I'll definitely earn, and we actually earn then, well, you could say 3 times over, right? I mean, we get double the bonus plus the return of capital. So we earn 120. I mean, we earn 200 units of what we put in. But now, if I believe that the price will fall after all, fall to 50,000, not 58, that's important, but 50,000. If I believe that, then I'm faced with a dilemma. Of course, if I buy at 50,000, then I'll earn 260 units. From what I see, if I invested 100 units, I'll make 260 more, 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 right? But then what if it doesn't drop to 50? What if it doesn't reach 50 and only hits 51? And I set my target at 50, then will my loss be, I mean, will I feel okay with that, you know? Won't it end up like it usually does, where I buy when the price is 70,000, right? And what if I believe it'll drop even lower to 40, thousand? Now, I'd say this, well, that it'll hit 40,000 right now. Few people believe that. I'm saying 40, not 48, but 40. I think there are a few such people here, and few who are so certain that they won't buy anything now just to wait for that coveted 40. I think that 50, so around 49, 50, 51, well, that's likely. We have 60 now, right? So we can buy. And now the key question, yes, the key question, am I truly ready to take the risk of not earning or maybe earning nothing at all, waiting and just waiting or for that 50,000?
Well, here we have the option, I think, to split it by percentage. I'd probably lean towards that. I'd set a few of those thresholds. Like we said, 3. Let's say the first was 60, 50, 40, so about 33% each.
Right.
Place the positions and we spread that risk, right?
And now I suggest everyone grab a piece of paper and do the math. What result will I get if, let's say, I split it into 3 thresholds, right? 1/3 I buy at 60, 1/3 when the rate drops to 50, and 1/3 when the rate drops to 40. Calculate what the final result would be if I manage 100% of the plan. And what am I risking? How large an amount of earnings? Because notice, between 200 and 260 units. So let's assume I invest $100 at 60 now. Then if I buy now, I'll earn $200 plus 100 return of capital. And if it goes down, I'll wait until 50, then I'll earn $260 plus 100 return of capital. Well, I have to say that those $60 more in earnings with huge risk, because for me, it's a huge risk that I'll earn nothing. It's very high. And we can split it into 3. Then there will be, we still have a high risk of not earning much, but we'll earn something. So why not split it into 200 parts, for example, right? And do what I'm personally most convinced of, which is simply DCA, systematic buying. Buying regardless of the price every hour, every day, every week, every month for exactly 1/30th, 100th of that investment amount I want to allocate. Then you could say maybe I won't make the most, but I'll definitely make something, right?
And with this market volatility, to be honest, it's very easy to catch in this movement
All those dips.
those dips, right? So
Well, I was very happy with the recent drops because I have these recurring orders that work, but they're a bit smarter because they only buy when the price falls below some threshold, right? And that gives me this opportunity that I have recurring orders on all the time. As soon as they appear, the price goes below 60, then I buy up for small amounts every now and then. And thanks to that, I caught all those nice dips. I'm very happy. And I sleep peacefully. I don't worry. But yes, I've adopted this mindset in my head that everything below 60 I buy. But most of my capital is invested regardless of the price, even above 60, because I think it's a good price anyway. If we believe in it, if we're convinced, and I personally am convinced that the price will rise to at least 180, well, then buying at 60, even at 70, or not buying at 70 when it'll be at 180 is almost a sin, right? That's how it is. And your strategy?
my strategy, well, is very similar with that small detail that I'm waiting for 54,000. That's just how I calculated it.
You're counting on it being 50. And what if it's 54,500?
Well, that might be a problem, but I mean, I have more like two triggers, I'd say. The first trigger is the price of 54. And the second trigger is this cyclicality mid-September around October. Then, regardless of the price, I'd start buying even at 60 something, because I think that in September, it'll already be a time when the bull market is literally around the corner, regardless of how it shapes up there. The fatigue, the capitulation, let's say, of investors will already be so great that, well, lower valuations in September, once a given valuation is reached, it'll be hard to find lower ones in September. So,
Okay.
two triggers.
For all those who are still waiting for the launch of the Kanga Exchange EU platform, I remind you, you can sign up for notifications. It'll be any moment now, any second, the possibility of registration and signing up for the platform will begin. We simply have to act according to a certain timeline, which requires, or we have to wait for some appropriate consents, additional information, necessary approvals, and so on. And when all that is in place, we can launch. I remind you, Kanga Exchange EU, this platform run by Alpha Root, the company Alpha Root from Latvia, has obtained a MyCA license, and the highest one, third degree. So we have every right to operate on European markets. And well, I have to say, I'm honestly glad that this particular period of launching the MyCA platforms happened to fall right during the summer holidays. You know, summer is generally considered a slower season and not much usually happens. So it's actually a really good time to get everything up and running, to carefully address and mitigate any potential problems, and to make sure we are fully operational. Like you say, September is your goal.
That is my goal.
Yeah. Let us know. Do you think so as well? We'd really like to hear your opinion. If you have other ideas for buying, then write what strategies you have in the comments. I'm very curious. Share your ideas.
Exactly. And meanwhile, since we're talking about the price, I wonder if the recent event, which was the large sale of Bitcoins by Saylor, could make my dream of a price of 54 come true. But it seems to me that the market reacted to it quite passively, I would say.
Well, there was a drop, a very short one, but an immediate rise. I have to tell you, because there, remind me, do you have the exact info on how many Bitcoins they sold there?
I'm looking now. It was 3,588 units.
Yes, for $216 million. That's how much they sold. Let's not delve into the motivation, maybe, because it's starting to get quite tricky here, why they sold and so on. I have to tell you one thing. If someone is buying Bitcoin right now for $290,000, then would you actually consider buying it for 64? I mean, really, would you?
Would I buy? Well, then I would definitely buy.
Okay, well, let's do a little mathematical trick. Here's Michael Saylor, the company strategy in June. From June 1st to 22nd, they bought a total of 3,657 Bitcoins, paying 236 million for them. And as of today, which is specifically July 7th, they have sold a total of 3,588 Bitcoins for the considerable sum of $216 million. This leaves us with a remaining balance of 69 Bitcoins, which were originally purchased for a total of $20 million. Because since they spent 236, then recovered 216, well, that's a 20 million difference, and they were left with 69 Bitcoins. So it's as if they bought 69 Bitcoins for 20 million, average purchase price 289,000. So Michael Saylor is buying Bitcoins at 289,000. So against that backdrop, the 63, 64 that are currently on the market seem quite attractive. Exactly, but I think we'd have to go deeper into
into managing this capital, because buying is one thing. Because going deeper into that question, if I bought at 290, will I buy at 60? It probably depends on what stage and at what stage of planning the entire capital I am in this company, because it might turn out that 290 was a profitable moment at that time in the market, and a year later 60 in the overall economic situation.
Right.
Let's say we're still expecting drops, so I won't buy it at 60, for example.
I know that Michael Saylor is definitely playing all sorts of tricks on us here, because what's happening there is really honestly getting quite complicated. I'm a bit worried, honestly. I'm a bit worried that just like before, there was this real enthusiasm about what Trump could do. And let's be honest, Trump did quite a few good things, right? There's really no point in downplaying that here. But what's happening right now in the Trump administration or these things, it's not even just about crypto, but in general, well, they're a bit irritating. It seems like something went wrong here. Let's put it mildly. Some hopes. Well, there are always hopes that people hold on to, dreams and expectations that sometimes just don't come true. They haven't really been fulfilled, at least not yet. But as for Trump right now, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but he had on the 4th or 5th of July, I think it was the 4th of July, he gave a speech where the words crypto, Bitcoin were probably the most frequent words used that were spoken. And Trump returned very strongly to this narrative. I am the pro crypto president. I am the one who ensures prosperity. He says, if we don't embrace crypto, if we aren't number one, then China will take it all over. And remember, and I wrote down some quotes here for reference, Biden was against it. He was, in fact, a very anti crypto president. The SEC under Biden was against it. They were not putting, but throwing people in jail for being involved in crypto. And I, the great President Trump, am releasing people from jail here because it can't be that people are sitting in jail for being involved in crypto. And there's some truth to that because, after all, those certain regulations were introduced, right?
I'll say a bit bitingly that it certainly has nothing to do with the midterm elections in the USA.
Oh no, of course not at all, not at all. It's absolutely not related to that, not in any way. But, and I'll say this quite bitingly, it's certainly not related whatsoever to how much Trump made on his coins, not in the slightest.
Exactly. Apparently, I didn't watch it. I just heard, but apparently he was surprised by a journalist's question about the amount. He was surprised he'd made that much and only found out from her. So I wouldn't link it here.
Even Wojtek laughed at that. Well, how much did he miss? What was the amount?
He missed out on a total of $1,200,000,000, which is an incredibly large sum of money.
Well, that's just pocket change. A trifle pocket change, a trifle. I read a short report in the New York Times that summarized these Trump tokens. And they estimated that about 1 million people lost $3.8 billion
on those tokens.
On those meme coin tokens and also on WLT. Let's pause for a moment. Or
yes, World Liberty Finance, right?
WLF, yes.
I have some information right here at hand that shows from the meme coins of this royal family alone. Yes, the royalties meme coins. He actually earned a total of $636 million. So if people lost $1 billion, then he actually holds more than half of the money that people lost. And when you count WLF, it's only in the second position, which means those tokens for his institution earned him even less than that meme coin did. That's also very significant to me. 515 million, and only then the WLF holding at 65 million. So the disparity is gigantic.
Because you have to know how to make money. You just have to know how. Someone wrote here, not just someone, sorry, but Grubi Nadaje wrote that exchanges aren't working, yet you're encouraging DCA. Hello, are you living in reality? I'll show it. Oh, I can show it. Welcome. I'll say this as a rule because it's a very interesting reality right now, because we have a situation where, for example, Binance didn't get a license. It was rejected. They tried in one country and another country. They tried in Greece. Why in Greece? Well, some say it's because China has a lot of influence in Greece and they hoped it would work there. Then they went to France. And they didn't get it in France either. That's quite fresh news. They clearly have some kind of problem. While some exchanges did get it, launched their platforms or are in the process of launching them, because it's still a fluid situation. I'd like to point out that most of those exchanges that didn't receive a license, those platforms that either did not apply for one or are still in the process but haven't received it yet for their new European platforms, are, generally speaking, still available. Yes, that's the right word. They are available to Europeans. They are accessible and they do work. However, they can't advertise and they can't actively inform about their presence. For me, this reverse solicitation rule is quite not entirely clear. It's like this for me. On the one hand, I'm honestly glad that it exists, because I really do think you shouldn't forbid it. If someone wants to use something, then they shouldn't be stopped from doing so. But here, in this particular case, it's just not quite clearly formulated for me. And I wish it was explained a bit more clearly, or in a way that's easier to understand. So these platforms are working, and I can say that those exchanges that didn't get a license because they didn't try or haven't received it yet, they are actually available. You can operate there. The approach varies. Some platforms started blocking certain services for many users, and that's the path taken by, for example, Binance. Yes, started blocking very heavily. We have access to funds. I emphasize we have access to funds, but we don't have the possibility of such active operation. But other platforms are still available. You can log in and use them normally, although marketing information is limited. And here, this reverse solicitation rule is followed in such a way that they simply don't inform about it. The exchange, some platforms can't talk about it, but we're waiting, I emphasize, because for us it's important. In the coming days, access to the Kanga Exchange EU platform will appear, and it will be possible to register and operate normally. Here's an interesting fact. Kanga Exchange EU in its license also has, it's simply a masterpiece. It also has the possibility of cash operations. We got approval for this from the Latvian regulator. We will be able to passport, or this service is already passported, and we will be launching all exchange offices, all such cash points, so that they are available in all of Europe. We care about this very much. Those who value regulations, you are most welcome. Well, Kanga has always focused on being an exchange that is friendly to the first-time user as much as possible, and Kanga wants to remain such an exchange for the average Joe. Piotr, I'm sorry. But it's meant to be the exchange that allows the average person to get access to crypto assets, this modern finance. Because yes, such a word is appearing more and more often in the narrative now. Modern finance, meaning everything related to crypto, tokenomics, and RWA, or real world assets, all of that will be on Kanga. Okay, so next topic, Simon.
Since we're on the subject of services, there's an institution that also received this license. It's Revolut.
Okay, sure.
And Revolut is deciding to delist USDT.
Okay.
They haven't provided details, or rather a broader strategy for this delisting. The only thing they're citing for their decision is regulatory risk. So as you can see, the impact of MyKA is very much felt in the business world. Until the end of August, I believe, if I remember correctly, users have the option to withdraw funds in the form of USDT, or if they don't, they'll be converted to their native fiat currency and credited to the user's account.
Okay, so they've chosen a rather oppressive and restrictive action, one that causes us to lose access to those funds, and unfortunately, we can't do anything with them. I'm not surprised. MyKA regulations are indeed very restrictive. USDT has not received, and as far as we know, is also not seeking to obtain a MyCA license, which, if granted, would allow it to operate within the European Union. Well, it must be said that it's still the main stablecoin in the world, and honestly, it looks a little bit funny here, because USDT's market capitalization is currently $185 billion. It's just growing like crazy. Meanwhile, USDC, which is the direct competitor from Circle, did actually get such a license for the European Union. It's only 73, which is actually more than 2.5 times less than Tether. In other words, when you compare the two, 73 is much smaller, and this really shows just how much less it is compared to Tether's much larger number. Then after that, other stablecoins start to appear as well, but they're actually really, really low, about $11 billion, which is still quite a lot, of course. Some stablecoins are popping up, though I'm not sure about their current status regarding the MyCA license. Well, Tether is actually doing perfectly fine in the world right now, and everything seems to be going smoothly. The European Union is trying to stifle it just a little bit. Do you think that USDC will eventually catch on as a stablecoin in the European Union, or?
Well, it seems to me, it seems to me that USDT has the same status among stablecoins as Bitcoin has among cryptocurrencies, meaning it's the cryptocurrency that, like, the first stablecoin we think of is this one. It's the same with Bitcoin. It's the first cryptocurrency. So it seems, I don't know if the union was ultimately concerned not so much with USDT, but with the dollar in general, because it seems to me that the union's goal was to start using the euro in this form.
They'd love that, because let's remember, as for the rule for stablecoins, it's that if an issuer issues a stablecoin, the European Bank requires that if you want to be in the European Union, all stablecoins that are issued must be held in European banks. And well, it's very, very strict here. I'm not surprised, because
that was, generally speaking, Paulo Arduino's main concern, right? He is, after all, the chief executive officer of Tether.
They want their debt financed, right? Because that allows the central bank or the European Union, let's say generally, to finance their own debt, and not like with USDT, where we're de facto financing the US government's debt.
So returning to your question and to answer it, it seems to me that USDC will quite naturally take the lead. However, this will likely be the case specifically among communities that are inclined to follow these particular trends. With entities that, here into this Mika, they go deep into Mika. USDT, in my opinion, will continue to be alive among other users all over the world.
Well, I must say that I have yet another theory, because I've started to come to the conclusion that it's very possible that we'll see a proliferation of stablecoins, a very, very large proliferation. Why? Well, because issuing a stablecoin actually comes in handy even within some closed circle, in some product group, or for the needs of some group, a group of people for such internal settlement. It doesn't have to be a cryptocurrency or a stablecoin with a global reach. Of course, it's better for the issuer, well, because they have more income from this passive one, but it may turn out that 10, 20 different stablecoins will be created in Europe, which will be used by different communities. No, there will be exchange X. It will issue its own stablecoin Euro X, and it will be used to operate within this platform and related platforms, related services. And this other platform Y will do the same. There will be Euro Y and so on. As a result, we will have a number of small stable coins and quite a few different products that are competing with each other just a bit, which surprisingly is caused by these very actions. It may be caused by European actions, which usually tended to limit competition, so that this competition was limited. And here it may turn out that this competition will increase, which could be quite a good signal for the market.
A bit of a return to the roots, because there is decentralization.
Exactly. Here, an interesting situation on the market when it comes to centralization or decentralization. One of the largest Bitcoin pools, a company is withdrawing from mining. It will be closing its pool. It's not really so much the mines, but rather the pool itself. That makes the difference, because many miners mine for that pool there. They also had their own equipment, but they are giving up on operating this pool. And they will be entering the exchange market as they want to change their focus now. This is quite a large pool, representing over 2% of the entire hash rate. So it is indeed quite a lot. Now, in the coming weeks, this hash rate will likely move to other pools. We'll see how this affects the centralization of Bitcoin mining. This is also an interesting topic raised, that this decentralization of mining on Bitcoin is currently quite poor, because we have a few pools that dominate and the rest don't count. They're like plankton. That's actually not the best move for Bitcoin, right?
Exactly. But at this stage, do you think it's a real threat for introducing unfavorable changes to the Bitcoin protocol?
Yes, because if some pool, right now you could say, that means it's often enough for just 2 or 3 mining pools to agree on a certain functionality or feature. In these situations, it might turn out that miners, especially those who are more passive, won't always take the appropriate action quickly enough to move over to other pools, even when it would be in their best interest to do so. that won't support these changes. And so some unfavorable changes could be introduced. And here I think we need a little digression about what's up with these pools and changes, because in Bitcoin, which is, you could say, mega democratic, surprisingly mega democratic, everything here depends on the majority. If the majority agrees to a change, then that change is considered official. And now, what is the majority? Who votes? Well, the miners vote, but not really those who own the machines, but those who run the pool, meaning the places where all these mining machines are connected and work together to maintain the Bitcoin network. And now, if such a pool concentrates a very large amount of computing power, then it's enough to convince a few pools to support a change. And that change can be implemented. The only solution is that the ability to move these machines from one pool to another is preserved, which is complicated, involves major technical and organizational problems, and that can cause some reluctance. So, well, if a pool suddenly supports a change that miners don't agree with, it might turn out that miners won't have time to move. It's worth following the changes that will be introduced in Bitcoin, because things will likely happen in the coming months. In Ethereum, on the other hand, quite a lot is happening. Vitalik has become very active.
Yes, he's active, and he's become very active even for a decade, you could say, because he announced a fairly wide-ranging and comprehensive modernization plan for the network, which is scheduled to continue until the year 2029. The plan is quite ambitious, as it primarily involves focusing on being quantum resistant, on anonymization, on making the network private. But in the face of all the things happening in the Ethereum ecosystem, well, it's definitely a serious challenge, because even the most enthusiastic supporters, as well as analytically minded analysts who genuinely back the changes, still sincerely doubt whether the deadline can truly be met. They have real concerns about whether the timeline is actually realistic, that all these changes can be implemented. And certainly personnel changes in a broad sense don't help.
Well, or maybe they actually do help. I'll remind you of the famous case of Elon Musk and Twitter. When Elon Musk took over Twitter and fired a massive portion of the team, there was initial shock and disbelief, but then suddenly I hear from, in private conversations, I get subtle signals and bits of information. Like, at first I was honestly in shock. At first I really thought it was the end of the company, but I was also afraid to leave, so I decided to stay. And suddenly it turned out that the company not only works as it did before, meaning that crowd of people were completely unnecessary individuals whose development was held back by Twitter because they were there doing nothing and couldn't grow. So it's good they went elsewhere. I'm being a bit ironic here, of course, but it turned out that the people who stayed started saying that since the number of people in the company decreased, suddenly many things started being done faster, better, more efficiently. And the same could happen with Ethereum, because a lot of people are leaving the foundation after Vitalik said there would be sharp budget cuts, right?
Well, that's true. I mean, certainly in terms of, decision-making. The fewer people there are in this so-called decision-making ladder, the faster the decision-making certainly is, because fewer people have to reach a consensus, for example. So I agree on that point. I'd only wonder because I don't know if in the Twitter case it was the same, that suddenly so many decision makers were also laid off.
Oh yes, very many. Many processes were, let's say, to introduce some change. Previously, there were 10 consecutive decision-making steps, and that was changed to 2, right? Like, to introduce a change, 10 committees had to give their consent, and here suddenly only 2, right?
Well, if you can really compare the 180-degree turn after Musk's takeover of Twitter in terms of certain principles, well, and if we can compare that in scale with the change that Vitalik wants to introduce in Ethereum, it seems to me that it's actually quite realistic. This cut might genuinely work, because paradoxically, many things could end up speeding up as a result.
Yes, well, I'll remind you, the Ethereum network is still the main network when it comes to stablecoins. Over 50% of the market, the second for USDT at least, the second is Tron, that's mainly Asia. And in third place is Solana. Here, Solana is really starting to eat into Tron and Ethereum a little bit as well, but actually Ethereum is becoming that main, or rather it's the main driving force when it comes to USDT. But not only that, because the vast majority of RWA is or will be tokenized specifically on the Ethereum network. Here, many banks or many funds are saying that this will be their primary network of choice. Anything else, unless you have something more to add about Ethereum?
No, that's about it.
Okay, so listen, here's an interesting fact. Actually, a fact regarding how the legislation looks. Maybe let's not talk about Poland because that might heat things up unnecessarily. Let's talk about another country. Let's talk about supposedly the most developed democracy. I say supposedly, unironically, it's just said that it's the most developed democracy, meaning in the United States. Listen, I'm following the Clarity Act very closely, which is this set of bills that's about to be voted on. They say it's literally any day now, and there are a few senators missing to be sure that it will definitely pass. And as I'm hearing voices, I hear them saying, oh, what a great breakthrough, a truly great breakthrough. Because here, some organization is making this possible. Noble, well, we can actually translate that as National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, which, well, it brings together such high-ranking officers, police, sheriffs, directors of federal agencies, and so on. It said, we now support the Clarity Act. And I'm like, man, what do these sheriffs, these black decision makers, and police chiefs or federal agency directors, what do they have to do with crypto? Why are they even dealing with this bill? And then it struck me even more when another piece of news came in, I think on Friday, that MCSA changed its status from negative to neutral, meaning it says basically vote according to your conscience. And I'm like, what is this MCSA? MCSA? Major County Sheriffs of America. So an exclusive association of the largest, bringing together or uniting sheriffs who manage the largest counties. Those are counties in the United States. I started checking. I'm like, first of all, I've never heard of such organizations. Do they still have an influence on legislation? Is this some kind of fake news or something? So I checked, and indeed this organization, Noble, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, even though it's not very large, with fewer than 5,000 members, it is very influential. A very influential lobby group that has a strong and significant impact on which bills are passed in the United States. The MCSA, which is the second organization we are discussing here, is truly a really powerful and highly influential organization. This group is well known for its ability to shape legislation and influence important decisions at the highest levels of government, making it a key player in the American political landscape. It's seen as one of the strongest ones related to the police. 120 million Americans are protected by police chiefs who are part of this organization. So the power of their message is quite strong, and everyone takes them seriously. A very interesting mechanism. I wasn't aware at all that it works like this. I'd heard about this lobbying, I'd heard about these organizations, but it was always in the background. And here, look, such a surprise. These two organizations importantly changed. Noble changed to positive and MCSA changed to neutral, which brings us closer to the Clarity Act actually passing, which Trump strongly supports. Well, they want to do it in July, because if not in July, then it's really anyone's guess when.
And do you think the lobby has its own interest in this, or maybe the lobby is being influenced? Did someone influence this lobby to have this particular stance?
That's exactly what I don't get, because to me, it's as if right now, it's like, so the Association of Allotment Gardens, those groups that represent the workers' allotment gardens, the people who actually manage and tend to these small plots of land, were commenting on whether MyCA is good or bad, or even discussing how MyCA should ideally look or be structured. Honestly, I don't really see the connection here between these two things, but apparently that's just how it works sometimes. I'm not judging, I'm listening here. I don't want to be perceived in a bad way. I'm checking what else I was supposed to say here. Well, we already talked about those strategic purchases. We talked about Trump. We talked about stable coins. Do you have any more interesting news? The password.
Right, as part of the guide. Maybe what password should we choose today? We have a big change, Vitalik, and we have a surprise from Sailor in the form of this sale. So Sailor or Vitalik?
I'd go with Sailor.
Let's take that.
So the password is Sailor.
Contest password is Sailor. Want to remind everyone of the rules.
Maybe at the very end. Let's talk about one more thing. Very interesting, because we skipped over it a bit regarding these cycles and prices and so on. I must say that when I listen to all these analysts, I have to admit that every one of them convinces me. Every one of them convinces me. I listen to one and I say, oh, this is going to go left. I say, damn, it'll go left for sure. I mean, this will go left, right? I'll watch the next video and there a guy says it'll go right. And he says, no, actually it'll go right because of this, and that, right? I mean, he shows it in black and white, right? Then I listen to a third one and he says, no, it'll go left. And yet it is. And normally you could say that a person starts to be pulled left, right, up, down, but one argument is quite interesting. He talks about the fact that if we take a look at the months, specifically the monthly changes in the price of Bitcoin, we can see an interesting pattern. If we look at June, starting from the year 2013, whenever June was a red month, meaning there was a drop in price, then every single time July that followed was always, without exception, bullish.
Okay, so there hasn't been a precedent yet.
There hasn't been a precedent yet, exactly. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that July will be bullish. It only means that there hasn't been a precedent yet. This precedent might just happen now. So let's watch out for those who say they have crystal balls and no one is able to predict this, just as no one was able to predict that suddenly ETFs would wake up and start buying. I must say that there were so many red days here and such big ones that simply I started to forget that any other color exists. And then suddenly Friday ended with a very large reversal. There was no slowing down and then up, but simply a reversal of the arrow by 180 degrees. On July 1st, almost 300 million flowed out. Million, I'm saying it right, $1 million. And on the 2nd, that is the next day, over 200 flowed in, right? Yes. Yes, please. And of course, on the 6th, that is yesterday on Monday, 265 million flowed in. So these Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs are picking up speed. Similarly, except that here, this change occurred a day earlier, because on July 1st, there was already a reversal to inflows. Quite interesting, yeah. Of course, BlackRock is leading here. And the question is, the fact that the price rose, is that an effect? Is the effect of inflows into ETFs generally a price increase, or could it actually be the other way around? Is it perhaps the case that when the price rises, we then see inflows into ETFs as a result?
My first thought is that in this market condition, it's rather the first assumption. That is that the increase prices, no, the second one, sorry, meaning that people deposited money into ETFs, so the price went up.
Okay, so the fact that people started putting money into ETFs caused the Bitcoin price to rise, right?
I think that what's happening in the market right now doesn't really translate into making the price swing very wildly on its own. So like the capital itself is what's stabilizing the price somehow. A fair price, so to speak. That's how I'd put it.
Let us know what you think, whether ETFs rule the market or the market rules ETFs. At least in this situation here, June, July, the turn of June and July, whether it was actually, as Simon says, meaning the price went up because people deposited into ETFs, or as some believe the price went up and that's why people started depositing into ETFs. A very, very interesting discussion. And of course, I'm reminding you to subscribe and give a thumbs up, because it's very important to us. We have a reach of 104,000 right now. We're very happy about it. If you think that this was an interesting broadcast, definitely give it a thumbs up. And I think we can move on to the contest now. Simon, you prepare the results and I'll quickly go over the contest rules. The ongoing contest, the only contest of its kind in the world and on the internet. So If you think you can accurately predict, calculate, or forecast the price of Bitcoin, well then step into the ring with the best, because the best really are here. And sometimes I'm shocked by the accuracy of your forecasts. So if you can predict what the Bitcoin price will be on the Bitcoin to USDC market at 9 a.m. on Tuesday in a week, which will be July 14th, then write a comment. The comment should consist of like 2 parts. The first is a sentence containing today's episode's password in its original form, and then we write BTC equals and our forecast. The comment, of course, 7 words, and ideally it should relate to the episode's content. We would be extremely pleased. And of course, the winner is whoever is closest, but you can only be off by $25, plus or minus $25. If there is no one who gets within $25, then the contest remains undecided, unless someone writes a second comment with the password provided on our Discord. That second comment is considered an extra comment, because if you provide it, you could still have a chance to win. Meaning you provide that second comment, then your error can be as much as $200. So plus or minus $200 for the second comment with this special password from Discord. So it's worth a shot, but I'm curious if anyone even got it right this time, because that 10+% change, well, you had to have some serious, as the Eskimos say, cojones to predict a price like that. Was there anyone like that on this among our participants?
Yes. Well, surprisingly, then there is such a person. The price at 9 o'clock was exactly $63,249.20.
Mm-hmm.
The prize is 32.2 Kanga. For this victory and this prize, Zarek Wallo wins.
Bravo, Zarek. And by how much was he off roughly?
Slightly over $15, which means 1 comment was enough. Although, of course, we encourage leaving.
Do you understand this? The guy had an accuracy of 6,000 would be 10%, $600 is 1%, $60 is 1/10. That's 0.03% accuracy. Jarek, listen, call me.
Yes. We can do 2 things: congratulate and be envious.
Yes.
So our sincere congratulations.
Well, okay. So we encourage you to take part in the contest, because as you can see, technical analysis actually works. It actually works. Man, it's you learn your whole life. Let us know what you think about it. And so the 55th minute is ending, so the quarter can be finished. It was always supposed to be 15 minutes.
I mean, this is a Kanga quarter. It's a different unit of measurement. We've already established that, so it's a bit longer than a standard quarter. Well, but all good things come to an end quickly. After 55 minutes, a quarter. So, with Kanga, it can be considered finished, unless you want to add something else, Łukasz.
Once again, I remind you, it's worth visiting the Kanga Exchange website and signing up for the mailing list there to be the first to receive information that the platform is already available. It's really days, hours, even minutes at this point. We're counting down here. I don't want to cause any unnecessary nervousness or anxiety in our teams, but these procedures, all these documents and papers, all these different things that need to be completed, you really have to do it all very meticulously and carefully, because when you're regulated, well, you're regulated, and that's just the way it is. There's no room for error, so every single detail matters. By the way, just as a small comment, recently my parents had a rather serious problem with one of the banks. And I must say that this situation honestly surprised me a bit, because it's actually one of the largest Polish banks. It simply started blocking my parents' account all the time because they're making a transfer to me for a small amount. I paid for something for them there, and my mom absolutely wanted to settle up. Well, that's how some people are. And she wanted to send it to me by transfer, and it blocked the account. She went to the bank, says, "Why is my account blocked?" The lady says, "Oh, it's for your safety." All right, because I wanted to make a transfer, so please unblock me because I want to send money to my son. Okay, account unblocked, a complicated procedure there, some questions, passwords, and so on. Mom got back home, she makes the transfer, and the account is blocked again. Just the act of making a transfer, it's unbelievable. I have to say, there were probably 7 of those visits in total. I don't get it. And The bank's excuse for your security is just something that's very, very weak. To me, it reminds me a bit of the explanations from, say, Mr. Przemysław Kral, who also had various messages like that for his users. But let's leave that aside. Wojtek, I can't say which bank. Well, it's one of the largest Polish banks. I'm very, very sorry about it. Well, I don't know what to say.
Regarding that, I can only share one of the thoughts I've had recently, that 5 years ago, I was afraid to make transfers to crypto exchanges and leave it. I preferred to keep my funds in a bank account, and I was much more certain about that. 5 years later, the situation has changed dramatically. I'd rather keep my funds, if anything, on an exchange, not in bank accounts.
That's interesting, Simon. Very interesting. The fact is, when we were on some of those corporate conference trips and I used a company card to pay for the hotel, I actually ended up paying twice. Yes, twice I found myself in that situation. It was a bit frustrating. Of course, our finance department informs the bank well in advance that there will be payments with this dollar card. Mind you, a dollar card being used for payments in the United States? Who would have thought, right, that you could use a dollar? But I'm at the hotel. I want to pay for the rooms. We just landed. We want to get in. I pay with that card blocked. You can't call the hotline because in Poland it's already 2 a.m. We're all standing here, and just twice that happened. It's something horrific. Because it was a suspicious transaction, right? Because it was a suspicious transaction. But that's a different bank, not the one my parents used.
Let me guess. You felt very safe and the bank fulfilled its promise.
Oh, yes. Great. That's exactly the point, right? That's the point.
That's right. All right. Battle cries, Łukasz.
For me, it's still Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still king. I have my favorite, our sort of pseudo logo here. I like it very, very much. BSK, Bitcoin is still king. And Simon, your battle cry?
I have my own original one. Mica, migration, and crypto accumulation.
Okay, wow. It looks like we have a brand new, totally fresh battle cry here. Bravo to that, honestly.
Great. Thank you very much for listening, for participating, and I truly appreciate your attention. See you very soon.
See you at the next one. Leave a comment, and next week on Tuesday, of course.
See you.
We are Kanga, beyond crypto.